There's not much to say about this chapter, other than it concludes the subplot dealing with Rico Muerte and the hotel used as the whorehouse. Upon entering a bar, Payne confronts the hitman and the mistress, who immediately open fire upon him. With them out of the way, Payne uncovers the citywide communication line for mass surveillance. The big takeaway for me during this chapter is the breakable environment. Between boxes, half-wrecked doors, and windows that let the player out onto the balcony, I began to learn there are hidden areas to stock up on resources. Also, characters that we met via evidence and comic strip panels made an appearance. Between Candy Dawn and Rico Muerte, it appeared that taking down these named bosses would be instrumental in dismantling the Puccinelli crime syndicate. After witnessing how the random pieces of evidence came together in the subplot, I chastised myself for not really paying attention to it before now. The structure of the game became apparent that every few chapters would be exploring and taking down different aspects of the Puccinelli crime family. As is understandable, starting off in a whorehouse seems to be a logical stepping off point for this story. The drug Valkyr keeps their money supply steady, and using sex workers to keep their manpower satisfied, they didn't have much to worry about. Addiction comes in many forms. Learning the vices of an individual and dangling it before their eyes is an easy way to keep them in line. A controlled population is one that is spoon-fed their personal vice by those in power, whether that be narcotics and sex, or more commonplace vices like entertainment and money. When chasing our vices is the most important thing in our lives, we are truly slaves in one form or another. Many narrative developments begin in this chapter. At the start, we discover that the Puccinelli family and the Russian mob are currently at odds. Explosives have been set by Vladimir and are taking down the Italian operations. A memo found tells us that Gognitti has been taking out hits on Russian hitmen, expecting the lack of forces to get them to back down. At this time, the NYPD SWAT finally catches up with Payne, making the threat from his former allies front and center. While in the building, Payne receives a mysterious call from a man named Alfred Woden, who warns him that the NYPD know his whereabouts. Upon entering the pawn shop, I do admit I had way too much fun vandalizing the place with a baseball bat, and laughing my ass off at the weird sounds it makes. After SWAT showed up, the level design began to mimic the sense of urgency the story demanded. The building kept exploding. Even the ground began to fall away, letting the player know that he was being hunted and there was no turning back. I question how Alfred knew Payne's location just as he came across the payphone. The fact he knew the movements of the SWAT team as well makes me curious how connected he really is. But then, with a name like Woden, I understand that him being all-knowing is the point. His name seems to me to be a reference to Odin of Norse mythology. Within this story, the Allfather must have eyes everywhere as well. After Gognitti's note, I question his understanding of human nature. He expects the Russians to roll over once their forces are thinned. He forgets that there are two types of personalities. One, who when faced with adversity collapses and huddles in the corner, and the other that will rage against adversity, wanting to prove that they can overcome. The position the Russians find themselves in reminds me of a quote from The Art of War. "Throw your soldiers into position once there is no escape, and they will prefer death to flight. If they will face death, there is nothing they may not achieve. Officers and men alike will put forth their utmost strength." After successfully giving the SWAT team the slip, Payne is hot on the heels of the next enforcer in the crime family. Weaving in and out of local shops, he makes it into the local laundromat before finding and wounding Gognitti, who leads Payne on a chase before leaping onto a train to escape. Within this chapter, we are made to traverse the rooftops of the city. In order to save ammo, I began to finally use the melee weapon option consistently. The environment itself began to feel more alive for me at this point. Being able to look back and see previous zones, walls collapsing, and the train at the end made me feel part of the world rather than walking from load zone to load zone. The two men huddled around the fire at the start of the chapter reaffirmed my belief that the story, symbolically at least, occurs during Fimbulvitr. They are discussing how the winter is colder than any on record and that it feels like the end of the world. I didn't mention this in the last episode, but with the businesses that act as a front for mob operations, it really shows how interconnected the city's underbelly really is. The level design makes this a literal point with the paths connecting these buildings together. It really gives the player the paranoid feeling that criminals and evil lurk around us everywhere. It lies just under the surface, but we never notice it. Think about it. How many people do you walk by on a daily basis that are involved in something shady?